Get ready for tent cities full of illegal migrants. I think it's inevitable, and here's why. We had 800 illegal migrants crossing the Channel on Easter weekend. We are up 43% on this time last year. The total for this year now stands at more than 5,000. As of December 2023, there were around 99,000 asylum seeker backlog cases. Where do we put these people? Well, let's look, shall we, at the new migrant accommodation. Some of these new large bases. The Wethersfield accommodation can house a maximum of 1,700. Well, if we had 800 this weekend, it's reasonable to expect that could be full by the end of the week. RAF Scampton, 800 people. That would have been filled this weekend as well. The Bibby Stockholm, 500 people. So that's been filled in less than a day. So those bases will be full. Now let's do migrant hotels. We've closed around 50 of the 400 or so migrant hotels. These people have been moved from one hotel to another or placed in social housing. So the migrant hotels are full. Social housing. As of January last year, there were 1.2 million households in England stuck on waiting lists for social housing. We have run out of social housing stock. When asylum seekers are granted asylum, they often have 28 days to leave a migrant hotel. They then very often go to the top of the social housing waiting list as they are at imminent risk of homelessness. So what stock there is will often go to them. But there isn't enough of it. In the decade to 2022, there was a total net loss of 165,000 social homes. Take the case of Milton Keynes, where the local council wanted to buy more flats to increase their social housing stock, but was outbid by the Home Office, so they could use those flats for asylum seekers, reportedly. So social housing is full. Where else do we put them? Student accommodation? Well, in Huddersfield, students were turfed out to make way for around 670 asylum seekers, but there obviously aren't enough student accommodation sites to do this, so they're full. Where's the other place for them? Well, private sector accommodation. In Chelmsford, luxury flats are being used despite 400 families living in squalid social housing with damp and mould. In Chertsey, in Surrey, one-bedroom flats going for £300,000 a pop look like they will be used for asylum seekers, but that is not sustainable. Councils and the Home Office cannot afford to buy posh luxury apartments and fill them with asylum seekers. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with mass asylum seeker homelessness. There was reportedly a 223% increase in street homelessness for people leaving asylum accommodation between June and September 2023. So some started camping outside a town hall in Greater Manchester. Well, there is nowhere to put these people. What's Labour's plan, by the way?
Where would you house people who come on small boats if Labour win the next election?
So Labour's policy is to not use the hotels by clearing the backlog. This backlog is costing...
So you would use barges and military sites,
No,
which cost
absolutely,
more than
no.
hotels.
The Labour Party has said no, we would not use that. And for the same reason. The costs are ludicrous. The National Audit Office has said the costs are ludicrous.
But you're not... I'm asking you, where are you going to house people? Because you're not going to be able to clear the backlog in a day or 2 days or 3 days, are you?
Right, they don't have one. And today, Rishi Sunak is looking to criminalise people who are already homeless in Britain. That is a Tory Prime Minister that, it appears, would rather criminalise homeless Brits than house them, while bending over backwards to accommodate people who have broken into this country at record levels. But, as you have just seen, everywhere, obviously, is full. So get ready for tent cities of asylum seekers in a town or a city near you. Let's get the thoughts now of my panel tonight. We've got political commentator Suzanne Evans, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and political editor of The Express, Sam Lister. Suzanne, where are we going to put these people? The uncomfortable truth, as far as I can see it, is that we are going to have tent cities of asylum seekers popping up around the UK.
Well, I think you summed it up beautifully, Patrick, just the huge pressure that we're seeing now on accommodation, and that does seem to be the only answer. But I'm actually a little bit more worried than that, because I think this is all getting very sinister now. We know that we've had people who have been told that their properties are going to be compulsory purchased for asylum seekers. That pretty much tears up private property rights in this country. I was listening to the radio on the way here, and they were talking about a massive problem facing Britain, which was older people living in houses that were, quote, too big for them. Who's got a right to tell you your house is too big for you? You should be allowed to live where you darn well like. And the implication was very clear. These elderly people are taking houses that they shouldn't have. And I fear that's a worry, that there'll be some kind of move to get them out of those houses. We've also had the horrible scenario last week when Matthew Parris, writing in The Times, talked about how euthanasia wouldn't be a bad thing if it encouraged elderly people to hasten their own deaths. So what? We've got to pop our clogs, have we, forcibly, when we're 60, 70, 80, 90, perhaps earlier, if we're not productive people in society, as Matthew Parris said it. So I think the whole thing now is getting really, really sinister and scary.
Okay. All right. Look, Benjamin, we've got people coming in record numbers, 43% up on this time last year. We're obviously not really deporting anyone, are we? The uncomfortable truth is that no one wants to talk about where on earth these people are going to live.
I mean, I think there are two problems. One is that clearly Rishi Sunak's plan has totally failed. They made a big deal at the latter half of last year about talking about the numbers falling, but they only fell because there was bad weather, so it was even more dangerous to cross in the Channel. And actually, just to put some context in this, when we're thinking about when the general election is going to be, if he does that in October or November, it will be after a summer of this sort of chaos, which will be very unhelpful for them. What I'd also say is that the average wait for someone to be processed in an asylum claim is 82 weeks, which is an incredible amount of time. It's double what it was 15 years ago. And so when you're looking at where you put these people that are applying for asylum, the fact is that if they dealt with the cases much quicker, then you wouldn't have the sheer numbers languishing.
Yeah, but then with respect to, let's say we accepted the vast majority of those people, which we unquestionably will, they still have to live somewhere then. And that's another problem, isn't it? Because we just don't have accommodation for them. And that's what I'm saying is they're going to get given something like 28 days to move out of a hotel or a base or something. And then they are out there on the streets. And that's how we end up with these tent cities.
But I would just point out that when you talk about the housing crisis, which we have at every level, you know, very well-paid young people and people that need council housing can't get properties. It's an absolute nightmare, let alone asylum seekers. There's about 40,000 of these people a year, and we're missing about 4 million homes. So it's in a very different proportion to what's being caused by people in small votes.
Immigration, isn't it? 1.2 million people coming here. That's a city the size of Birmingham every other year coming in. Of course there's going to be a housing crisis, and yet most commentators, most politicians don't want to address this.
Well, there's a housing crisis because people of your generation are more bothered about golf courses than building properties.
I don't say golf. But
all right. So, Sam, look, I am calling it right now. We are going to end up with rows and rows of tents in a variety of different towns and cities that are full of asylum seekers who have, at the best case scenario, been granted asylum.
Yeah, look, I mean, the 4 accommodation blocks you mentioned, one of them Scampton, there's huge pressures on that. That doesn't look like it's ever going to get off the ground. The hotels, we're paying £8 million a day. Obviously, we're trying to stop that. There's so much pressure already, but nobody can come up with a solution. The hotels are unacceptable, the RAF base is unacceptable, student accommodation is unacceptable. There is nowhere that is acceptable for these asylum seekers to go en masse to local populations, which means dispersing them, which means then you lose track of them as a nation. And that's a big problem for the government. So there is no solution to this problem that is obvious. And so I think you do end up where you say, Patrick, you do end up with these tent cities. We've already seen that in the past, actually. We saw that in Hyde Park. Mainly people who were coming from abroad were setting up tents in Hyde Park, bathing in the fountain there that had to be closed, urinating on the 7/7 memorial. This is a problem that has been around for a while, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, and no party wants to engage with this debate now, which is we've got a 43% rise. That's going to grow. Everyone can see that. We are not going to stop the boats. We've not got a deterrent. We're not deporting anybody. The numbers are going to keep coming, and no one wants to engage with the idea of what the heck you do with these people.
No, that's absolutely right. There's only one thing to do, in my boat, is to stop them getting here the moment they land on our shores. Back on a boat, back on a plane, somewhere, anywhere but here. That's the only way there's going to be a deterrent. Patrick, you had a great exclusive, didn't you, a few weeks ago? Said Rwanda's not a deterrent for them. You know, there's got to be a really, really hard line now. 120,000 in total since 2018. That scares the pants off me, frankly.
Yeah.
Because we don't know where...
Go on, Benjamin. The only way to stop tent cities is to stop the boats coming, no?
Well, everyone agrees you should stop the boats coming. No one besides the people smugglers that are letting people die for profit advocates for that to happen. But to say that those asylum seekers, many of whom are going to be legitimate, should simply be sent home. Are you saying they should be sent home to Afghanistan to be
They are, by the very nature of the fact they have paid people smugglers thousands of pounds to come here, they are criminals automatically.
There are
committed a criminal.
Sam,
there are 100 million. There are 100.
I do think the Abdulaziz case has frankly blown the lid off the idea of what is and what is not a legitimate asylum seeker. If that guy ended up being classed on paper as a legitimate asylum seeker, then these charities saying, oh, look, 80% of people who come are genuine asylum seekers. I'm sorry, I don't think they are.
We saw it as well with the Liverpool bomber who'd also claimed Christianity as a reason to stay in the country. There are 100 million displaced people in the world. We cannot take them all. And so how do you filter the people who we are going to take? Nobody has come up with a solution for that. I defy Benjamin to tell me how he's going to narrow down those 100 million people. And they all seem to be 25 to 30-year-old men.
Yep. OK. All right. Well, look, a Home Office spokesperson said this. The unacceptable number of people who continue to cross the English Channel demonstrates exactly why we must get flights to Rwanda off the ground as soon as possible. We remain committed to building on the successes that saw arrivals drop by more than a third last year, including tougher legislation agreements with international partners in order to save lives and stop the boats. I'm calling it here right now. Play the tape forward. It is tent cities in a town or city near you.